Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to the 8th Annual Bhaktivedanta Swami Lecture, which is held in honor of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, who is the founder Acharya of the International Society for Krishna Consciousness. My name is Buntetladi. I'm a social design researcher and engineer, and I will be your host this afternoon. In 2015, the United Nations organization communicated the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, which was adopted by all United Nations member states. The Sustainable Development Goals, the SDGs, also known as the Global Goals, were adopted as a universal call to action to end poverty, protect the planet, and ensure that by 2030 all people enjoy peace and prosperity. There are 17 goals altogether, and they're integrated. They recognize that action in one part affects the others, and that development must balance the social, the environmental, and economic sustainability outcomes. With only 9 years left until 2030 to reach these targets, it is important that we explore the effective and tangible strategies that not only shift the needle on the SDGs, but which sustain the change that these international goals aim to achieve. In Africa, some progress has been made on these goals, yet there are some concerns that as a continent, there's still some way to go. The creativity, know-how, technology, and financial resources from all of society is necessary to achieve the SDGs in every context. While each country has to play their part, create awareness, and drive implementation around these goals, what important aspects of the human being are we leaving out? How does sustainability translate to our everyday lives? What role do spiritual organizations have, or how do they contribute? Transformation and mindfulness have become popular words to throw around. Do we really believe that the world can be transformed? What will it take for a global transformation? Our topic this afternoon will consider the role and contribution of spirituality and indigenous knowledge to the global development and sustainability agenda. We look forward to your participation this afternoon via Facebook and YouTube should you have any comments and questions. I would like to acknowledge and warmly welcome our speakers. Our keynote speaker this afternoon is Gauranga Dasa. Gauranga Dasa is a spiritual and environmental leader, corporate coach, and social reformer. He serves as the director of the Govardhan Eco Village in Mumbai, India. Welcome, Gauranga Dasa. Thank you for your participation in today's conversation.
Thank you so much for welcoming me. Honored.
Thank you. I'd also like to welcome Mfundo Ngosi, who is a trustee and chief of operations at the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust Africa. Thank you, Mfundo. Great to have you with us.
Pleasure to be with you both.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
2021 marks the 125th birthday anniversary of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, also known as Srila Prabhupada. This lecture is held annually by the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust African Division. The Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, or BBT, is the publishing house established by Srila Prabhupada in 1972 to publish his teachings, writings, and lectures, as well as works by other authors about Vedic spirituality. I will now invite Mfundo to share more about this lecture series. Mfundo Ngosi is a trustee and chief of operations at the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust African Division. He has served in the organization for more than a decade, being involved with translation, editing, serving as the head of events, and the BBT Africa ambassador. He's a civil engineer by profession, working in the urban sustainability and renewable energy space. He's also the current head of environmental and sustainability in ISKCON South Africa. Thank you, Mfundo.
Thank you so much, Buntle, for the very lovely welcome. Welcome, Gauranga Prabhu. It is such a pleasure to have you with us. Thank you for setting such a nice context to the topic as well, Buntle. You know, humanity is always on a quest of self-improvement. We're constantly pushing the envelope, striving to reach new frontiers and go boldly into the future. A future we hope will be better than our present. As you pointed out, 6 years ago in 2015, the governments of the world came together to ask this very question: how do we create a better world for all? How do we achieve social equality through adequate and accessible healthcare? How do we ensure sound and decisive climate action to mitigate the effects of global warming and climate change? How do we ensure we preserve basic natural resources like water, our air, and arable land so future generations can subsist as part of the mission to end global poverty and food insecurity? How do we create economies and policies that uphold and promote fundamental tenets to live sustainably in an effort to reach our collective vision for a better future? Sitting in New York under the roof of the United Nations, leaders of the world put together a set of global goals for the development of the world. These sustainable development goals, forged through a massive consultation process, are the vision of where we as humanity want to be at the year 2030. With each passing year, as we edge closer and closer to the deadline of 2030, we are realizing more and more that sustainability is not just a question for governments and NGOs, but it is a question for corporate citizenship, and essentially a question for you, for me, and every individual citizen of this planet. The change we want to see is indeed the responsibility and a function of change within every individual of this world. So in order to see global change, collective change, we first must have individual change. This is the enticing subject of this year's 8th Bhaktivedanta Swami lecture, Spirituality and Sustainability. The Bhaktivedanta Swami lecture series is BBT Africa's hallmark calendar event. It is presented in honor of the founder Acharya of the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. This lecture series is designed to look at current global issues through the vantage point of timeless Vedic wisdom. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami is considered to be the foremost scholar of Vedic knowledge in the modern era, and has, through his tireless efforts, cracked open the lock of this timeless Vedic wisdom through the translation of more than 70 volumes of books that were locked in the Sanskrit language and now have been translated into dozens of languages across the world. This year, as Buntle has mentioned, is the 125th anniversary of his appearance, Srila Prabhupada, whose life and works have inspired millions of people across the world. So I would like to warmly welcome our esteemed keynote speaker yet again, Gauranga Dasa, who is a close friend of BBT Africa. I would also like to acknowledge the presence of our senior BBT trustee, Gauranga Dasa, whom under him all of this is possible. I would also like to extend a very warm welcome and gratitude to our trustee emeritus, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami. And finally, my warmest welcome extends to each and every single one of you watching online from all corners of the world. Welcome to BBT Africa's 8th Annual Bhaktivedanta Swami Lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Mfundo, for that overview, as well as the insights that you've shared in terms of why is this topic important, how does it relate to the events we're hosting today, as well as the place that it holds in BBT Africa's repertoire of events that they hold. Thank you. Our keynote address this year will be given by Gauranga Dasa. Gauranga Dasa is a monk and motivational speaker, a teacher who strives to bring change to society through a number of different transformational activities. He holds an IIT degree, which he uses for social and sustainable impact through the tools of self-transformation. The Govardhan Eco Village, or GEV, of which Gauranga Dasa is the director, was awarded the United Nations Award for Excellence and Innovation in Tourism from the United Nations World Tourism Organization in 2017 for its initiative on ecotourism as a catalyst for rural development. This project has been able to link tourism initiatives to sustainability by so creating a model for empowerment and development of the local communities in that area. Among his many other accolades, Gauranga Dasa received the Spirit of Humanity Award in the Livelihood category from the American Indian Foundation. He has facilitated the GEB Sustainable Tourism Initiative in the India, Brazil, South Africa Tourism Conference in Delhi, and he received the National Energy Globe Foundation for Integrated Water Conservation and Protection. Through this afternoon's lecture, we hope to not only hear, but to also discuss how spirituality and indigenous knowledge can offer a valuable and enriching contribution to the global sustainable development goals. I have intentionally used the word discuss because, as much as we'll be hearing this afternoon, this event is meant to be a platform for conversation. So we would like to hear your voice too in the audience. You can participate in the conversation through our various social media accounts, which have been shared on the screen and which you're most probably listening through as well. So we really look forward to hearing your voice. And thank you, Gauranga Dasa. We also look forward to hearing your insights on this topic. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Ms. Bontel and Fondo, for your initial framing words and for your warm welcome. Welcome to all of you and good afternoon. We are speaking on a very crucial, important topic of spirituality and sustainability. I'll begin with a small mantra which is part of our Vedas. Dyav Shantir Antariksha Shanti Prithvi Shantir Apah Shantir Aushadayah Vanaspateh Shantah Shanti Vishvedeva Shanti Brahma Shanti 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 Eva Shanti. Let there be balance in the space, let there be balance in the sky, let there be peace on the earth, let there be calmness, let there be growth in the plants, let there be growth in the trees, let there be grace of the gods, let there be bliss everywhere, let there be balance in everything, let there be peace and peace and peace, and let such peace be with all of us. So this is from the Shukla Yajurveda. And I begin with this because agrarian, traditional, custom-based, technological and economically progressing social structures draw similarities between the ancient and the African compatriots. We share a close history in terms of struggles against social inequity, reform revolutions, protection laws of indigenous culture and heritage, and numerous welfare policies for both the youth and women. The ideology of welfare has not been understood in the innate form, and the relationship between social welfare and social policy becomes difficult to be differentiated due to segregation of coverage of groups under both the banners. The faith based organizations play a crucial part in community mobilization through a social responsibility and engagement model. Dear friends, as we enter into September 2021, the world population has increased from 1 billion in 1800 to 7.7 billion in 2019. It took nearly 7 centuries for the population to double from 0.25 billion way back in 800 AD to almost zero point 0.5 billion in 1550 AD. But the most interesting thing is the fastest doubling of the population happened between 1950 and 1987 from 2.5 billion to uh, almost 5 billion in just 37 years. And that was something which human society had never seen in the past before. We expect to hit more than 10 billion by 2056. As described in the opening words, since the inception in 2015, the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development given by the United Nations, it has provided us the perfect blueprint for a shared sustainable world, a world where all the people can live productive, they can live vibrant, they can live peacefully on a healthy planet. And therefore, our dream, our vision is a combination of peaceful people and prosperously green planet. That would be the ideal recipe for harmony and balance. On December 11, 2014, the United Nations General Assembly resolved to observe June 21st every year as the International Day of Yoga. If you look at the resolution carefully, it mentions four important reasons why the International Day of Yoga was chosen. First, as far as choices are concerned, we have to note the importance of individuals and populations making healthier and more internationally appealing choices which will transform lifestyles to foster good health. Second, control. Understanding that global health is a long term development objective and that requires closer international cooperation, and that would require exchange of best practices, and that would build better lifestyles and avoid excesses of all kinds and improve self control. Third was yoga was recognized as providing a complete holistic approach to health and well being. And the fourth very important parameter was by declaring June 21st as the International Day of Yoga, the communication about the importance and the value of various kinds of traditional practices happening in different parts of the world would be disseminated across the world and people would benefit from it, especially in terms of mental and physical health. So the need for urbanization is superficially high, while the grassroots living is being neglected on an every single day basis. Cities are burdened with high population growth. There is tremendous amount of population density. Infections are growing, social inequity is growing, disparity is growing, inequalities are growing, and we find the cost of living is actually growing and surging like anything, but the happiness index is going down. The wellness indexes are indicating that social vibrancy has been choked. The economic vigor of the cities, which were thriving and growing at one time, is also now being blocked. Now, all of us are still reeling under the impact of the pandemic, and everybody realized the crucial importance of community living in close knit structures around villages, maybe in countrysides, suburban areas. The neo businesses lost their luster, lost their effect and charm, and what were considered as primitive businesses not only survived but thrived. Food, education, and health, they became the biggest benefactors. The concept of creating city comfort in village setting is the way forward for harmonious inhabitations of the next generation. And therefore, the Rig Veda very strongly proposes that environment provides bliss to people leading their lives perfectly. Rivers bless us with the sacred water and provide us with health, night, morning, vegetation. The sun blesses us with peaceful life, and the cows provide us with milk. An invocation from Rig Veda. Indigenous groups in Africa and India share a very close social relationship. There happen to be numerous case studies of inclusive living leading to extensive growth across the spaces. Both in India and in Africa, communities provide us with inspiration of clan based community living, faith inclined and tradition following with a rich heritage, both cultural and natural. These societies have proved to unlock transformational potential, to accelerate the sustainable development goals at the national level. Moreover, the focus of the cultural identity of the head of the household, it creates transformative measures taken by the family to educate better, live better, recreate better, to preserve better. A strong sense of solidarity and cultural identity through multilateral cooperation of personal and public sectors. They accelerate the achievement of sustainable development goals. A deeper sense of belonging in community led initiative for progressing Sustainable Development Goals 2030 is the way to accelerate development of the self and society, initiating at the grassroots. Dear friends, I would take this opportunity to share the case study of sustainable and spiritual ecosystem functioning in the midst of a circular economy at Govardhan Eco Village, which is 2 hours from the international airport in Mumbai, the district called Palghar. We are a United Nations Environment Program, United Nations Economic and Social Council, and United Nations Committee for Combating Desertification accredited NGO. And we thank United Nations World Tourism Organization for giving us the honor of the first prize in 2017 as part of ecotourism as a catalyst for rural development. Govardhan Eco Village is a 100-acre model community set up to highlight the importance of simple living and high thinking, a phrase which Srila Prabhupada, the founder of ISKCON, would often use. Unlike the modern research to trash systems, in Govardhan Eco Village, we follow a symbiotically dependent model. What is this? At the heart of this model, we believe that waste from one system can become the input for the next system. Beginning from the cow dung and cow urine, which is used as fertilizer for agriculture, to the earth-based mud blocks, which we have created 400,000 of them with only 7% cement, to the soil biotechnology plant, which processes 40 million liters of water every single year, black and gray water converted to fish fit water, to a plastic to diesel recycling plant, which ensures that we have a zero waste community. We have a whole lot of initiatives of circular economy within the community and social impact, which is based on three paradigms: harmony with the self, harmony with the divine, harmony with nature, and harmony with the community around us. So, based on these four pillars of harmony, we are actually creating an entire community which is based on spirituality, sustainability, and social impact. Similar case studies are also visible and seen in various places across Africa, and I'll be discussing just a few of them to show how these kind of projects are the need of the hour. I'll begin by sharing the case study of the Grow Biointensive Center in Kenya. I was quite impressed with this. It's a registered eco community based organization, and it promotes Grow Biointensive Agriculture, GBIA, and it also provides community development options and initiatives for small scale farm holders in rural areas in different provinces of Kenya. GBIAC was initiated in 2008 to respond to the increasing poverty levels and food shortages that we are facing. Especially those who are growing the food sometimes face such poverty that they die because of hunger, with the primary objective to assist the community self help groups to realize their potential by training in micro business management, in food production, group dynamics, and leadership skills. They have been able to help more than 1,000 families. At the Green School Kofunda Eco Village is a learning center eco village which is in Zimbabwe. And the journey is explore, seek to live what they believe is possible, self reliance for people, creating their own solutions, and working for the diversity and wealth that is required for economic growth. And this entire region can be transformed by following this model. Their work is crystallized in three areas. First is healing in community, coming together, working together, learning together, and then healing of the land, especially by avoiding all kinds of NPK farming, and expanding the permaculture work, biodynamic practice, and healing education with the Waldorf inspired school in Funda. And in this way, they believe that individual sovereignty would be the pathway for self reliance in Africa. They provide education to more than 100 children from indigenous tribes every single year, and they have been doing this consistently for 20 years and partnering with 12 native tribes. And these are some of the powerful achievements. When the civil war was affecting Cameroon, Barefoot Eco Village has been instrumental in identifying, in nurturing, and equipping Africa's future leaders with experiences, insights, and partnerships which lead to African led solutions as a response to the global crisis. The team's principles of upscaling their village has been based on the understanding of a new framework is needed to rebuild structures of global environmental ethics, and that is completely based on openness, transparency, interconnectedness, using permaculture networks, enhancing peer-to-peer learning, and cross-border collaboration. Barefoot Eco Village won the GIA Trust Excellence Award as one of the most inspiring projects in 2015. And actually, the social unrest which the Cameroon's civil crisis had created, this project actually converted people and transformed them and made them warriors against hunger, gave women a voice in land use. And they are working in the African continent through Gen Africa. And Govardhan Eco Village is also part of the Global Eco Village Network movement. And we do connect and collaborate with many such eco villages across the whole world. And it's so fascinating to see that continents may be different, cultures may be different, languages may be different, but ultimately we all have one thing in common: the soul within and the earth planet on which we are inhabiting. Therefore, United Nations, being such a science and data driven organization, it has come up with something really unique. They realize the importance of FBOs, or faith based organizations, in their ability to instill transformation in values and culture in people's lives. And therefore, they have reached out to FBOs across the world and requested them to participate in such transformational, heart transforming activities so that people's attitude towards planet Earth and climate change changes, their habits transform. Leave no one behind, and attain sustainable livelihoods and lifestyles. And therefore, the 5 P's of integrated approach to actualization of the sustainable development goals, which is people, planet, prosperity, peace, and partnerships, is something which the FBOs are inspired to do. And therefore, faith leaders are well placed to build the bridges of understanding and cooperation. And this is a real paradigm shift where a science based organization is very openly acknowledging that the crisis which all of us are seeing in terms of self destruction and planetary destruction, which is around the corner, can only be arrested through a global collaboration, irrespective of gender, caste, religion, etc. Govardhan Eco Village, through their Govardhan Education and Entrepreneurship Village, GEV 2.0, we want to extend our social impact and social change. The GEV 1.0 was focused on self transformation. The GEV 2.0 will be focused on social impact. We want to become a catalyst for social change. Palghar district has a population of 3 million, and the average income is hardly 27,000 rupees. We feel that by providing capacity building in education, healthcare, and entrepreneurship, we can actually transform the entire district and create a tremendous impact in that transformation. That begins with self transformation. And therefore, If you look at the 17 SDGs which the UN has given, through self transformation, the citizens become resilient while dealing with their personal issues and they begin understanding the issues of society at large. When there is a socially awakened society, then social change is bound to happen. And therefore, apart from providing capacity building in education, healthcare, and entrepreneurship, we also want to have research in food, water, energy, and waste. And in this way, we are sitting at the beginning of a decade where the healthy aging and the deadline for SDGs is coming through a conscious, concentrated effort to prevent our planet from the catastrophic climate change has to be done. How do we do that? The era of social change is spearheaded through self realization, understanding who am I and understanding my role in the context of the entire planet. In Govardhan Eco Village, we call it a way of life. W for wisdom, A for Ayurveda, Y for yoga. Wisdom to provide purpose, Ayurveda to provide healthy body, and yoga for providing the healthy mind. Unless we look at good health as a synergy between body, mind, and spirit, we will not be in a position to heal our planet. Cumulatively, we can build an ecosphere for social impact, and this is achieved through self transformation. And therefore, by providing this interpersonal dialogue, we are actually going to be linking religion and culture to environmental sustainability and thus address climate change, biodiversity loss, pollution, desertification, unsustainable land and water use by fostering a fundamental change in the attitude of the people through our communities, through cooperation, through dialogue, by including the indigenous cultures whose traditional practices already embed such a relationship. How does sustainability translate to one's everyday lives? Can we have a blueprint to incorporate the 17 SDGs in our own lives in a short and straightforward measure? SDG 1 and 2, which is no poverty and zero hunger. Share your care, medium of expressing to share the excess of resources with the needy. Become a Samaritan and share your practices every day rather than only in the time of need. SDG 3, 6, and 7, fostering good health and well being, clean water, sanitation, affordable clean energy. Be very careful of social evils. Educate, learn yourself every day about social conscious living. Avoid wastage and adopt the principle of recycle as part of your practice. SDG 4, quality education. Support the charities, not profits, those who are engaged in assessing your locality in terms of helping and equipping children with education, preventive dropouts. SDG 5 and 10, gender equality, reduced inequalities. Make your attitude flexible, ensure a work life balance for both oneself and one's family members. Demonstrate actively social equity decisions. SDG 8 and 9, decent work, economic growth, industry innovation, infrastructure, share resources to multiply that growth for the entire workforce and community rather than the self. Assist to reduce inequalities at work, encourage sustainable and conscious adoption of technology, marry tradition and technology. SDG 11, sustainable cities and communities, raise the awareness for the need of transparency, create recycling of resources, control consumption, have advocacy, adoption of infrastructure which should last at least for 10 years. SDG 12, responsible consumption and production, self control and recycle. SDG 13, climate action, conscious study, use of resources available to oneself and community by equitable distribution at the time of usage. SDG 14 and 15, life below water, life on land, imbibe the culture of care, compassion, and empathy towards your surrounding ecosystem. respect the laws of nature to live and let live. SDG 16, peace, justice, and strong institutions. Find value in different demographics, thoughts, and beliefs of an inclusive society. Participate in your country's decision making process in a more informed manner. And SDG 17, partnership for the goals and collaboration is the future. And I really appreciate today's particular talk and the topic because to strengthen the substantial and sustainable relationship between the self and nature, one must inculcate the elements of appreciation, respect, status, role, affiliation, autonomy. Only by crafting such a relationship, one can become transformed, and amassing self transformation at the community level fuels growth, expels social evils. A society devoid of destructible substances then flourishes towards human development, described in Sanskrit as Manav Vikas. By consciously adopting solutions to socio cultural and economic problems, and then problems of poverty, hunger, morbidity, malnutrition, deaths, unemployment, social inequity, etc., can be challenged. ईशावास्यमिदं सर्वं यत्किञ्चित् जगत्यां जगत् तेन त्यक्तेन भुञ्जिता मा गृधः कस्य स्विद्धनम्. Srila Prabhupada in the Ishopanishad translates this as everything animate and inanimate within this world is controlled and owned by the Supreme. We should only accept those things for oneself which are set aside as one's quota, and one should not accept other things, knowing well to whom they belong. Yoga emphasizes an increased awareness. We are living in a world where we are constantly bombarded by weapons of mass distraction. There are smartphones, there are billboards, there are headphones, GPS devices, all kinds of things which are constantly trying to attract our attention. To the human brain, any distraction means novelty and it increases dopamine levels. Microsoft found that from 2017 to 2000, in the 2012 to 2017 period, the distraction levels decreased from 12 seconds. It increased from 12 seconds to only 8 seconds. To that extent, we have gone that even the goldfish has a distraction level of 9 seconds. The attention span has gone down so much. Internet users have grown from just 400 million in 2000 to almost 4.6 billion in the recent times. Almost 40% of the world has access to the internet, but still there is already 6% rate of addiction towards the internet. Almost 12% of the websites on the net are of pornographic content, with almost 2.3 billion pornographic web pages. America alone experiences a loss of $650 billion every year due to distraction, car accidents. This lack of self control is evident not just in terms of internet usage, but if you look at, tobacco or alcohol, we find that almost 3 million deaths globally happen due to alcohol consumption. We have almost 100 million people who died due to smoking addiction in the 1900 to 2000 period, but that number will go to 1 billion in 2000 to 2100 period. Globally, 6 million deaths happen due to addiction to smoking. So the impact of a global population with a lack of self-restraint and self-control is not just limited to affecting human beings, but the impact on the environment due to such a reckless approach towards sense enjoyment is humongous. I was shocked to hear that almost 33% of the food produced for human consumption, which translates into 2.3 billion tons, goes as waste. Just imagine 51 million square kilometers of the Earth planet is used for growing food. Out of that, 77% of the entire area is used simply for livestock, feed for meat and dairy. Only 23% is allocated for growing crops for human consumption. Lack of self control, lack of self discipline, especially over food, is also a major cause of 3 very powerful diseases all of us are impacted by in society. First, cardiovascular diseases, almost 18 million deaths in 2017, 10 million deaths due to cancer, and 5 million deaths due to obesity. Dear friends, these detailed statistics indicate two clear trends. First, the world and people across the world have lost their ability for sense control, for self control. We are a society which is imbalanced physically, emotionally, and socially. And this individual imbalance is taking a toll on the planet and accelerating climate change. And therefore, if we don't stand for something, we will fall for anything. We may not all be able to do great things, but we can all do small things with great love. And life is like riding a bicycle. To keep your balance, you must keep moving. Success is not final, failure is not fatal, but it is the courage to continue that counts. Everyone is thinking of changing the world, but very few think of changing themselves. Financial wealth may be the power to choose how you spend your money, but social wealth is the power to choose who you hang out with. Time wealth is the power to choose how you spend your day. And most importantly, mental wealth is the power to choose how you spend your attention. And therefore, spirituality helps us gain that mental wealth. We become more attentive towards what is going to benefit us and what is going to benefit the planet and human society. We must develop the art of getting things done, and we must also develop the art of leaving things undone. The wisdom of life consists in eliminating the non essentials. The place to improve is first one's own heart, hand, and head, and then we work out outwards from there. New goals do not deliver new results, only new lifestyles do. And lifestyle is not an outcome, it's a process. All of our energy should go into building better habits, not chasing better results. And the cost of our good habits we will experience in the present, but the cost of our bad habits we will experience in the future. Discipline is the fusion of intention with action, and that is where spirituality is so crucial. Because as food adds to our physical weight, our thoughts add to our mental weight. So let us choose both very carefully. I'll conclude with a beautiful verse from the Bhagavad Gita. Yada viniyatam chittam atmanyeva vatishthathe nisprah sarva kamebhyo yukta ityuchyate tada. Mind in perfect discipline and fixed in pure transcendence, able yogis trade their lust for inner independence. Yatha deepo nivasastho ningate sopama smrta yogino yata chittasya yunjato yogamatmanah. Yogis contemplate the soul with mind always the same, just as lamps in windless places burn with steady flame. So, therefore, dear friends, let us be detached from results and not from the goals. And to relish satisfaction, let us replace expectation with appreciation. Let us appreciate the opportunity we have to control our mind, control our habits, control ourselves. And then, with such self control, garnered by the sincere practice of spirituality, we can actually lead a more sustainable lives ourselves and help planet Earth become more sustainable by choosing our habits very, very carefully. I'm grateful to BBT Africa for welcoming me this afternoon, for sharing a few thoughts on spirituality and sustainability. I'm more than happy to answer any of your queries. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Gauranga Das. Such insightful comments, such thought-provoking, such heart-provoking for me personally, because I spend time thinking about these points that you've raised and the questions that you've raised and the answers that you've given in response as well. And I had to also pause myself as you were speaking, because I could have just like transcribed everything that you said. But I guess I will just share some of my remarks. And I see there's been a lot of engagement as we're speaking, and then we will deal with questions from the audience and comments as well, where they're at. I liked maybe I'll focus my thoughts on the highlights around harmony, because I've been thinking about what is social impact, and maybe that can be a question you speak to as well, and depending on the questions that we have. But what is social impact really? How do we define it? Because I think there's different things and different drivers that speak to. Also, like what you said about new goals will not drive new results. I like that point, because definitely we need to do something different if there's something that we're looking forward to. And the UN, the agenda stops in 2030, but the AU, which is more specific to our African context, they have a charter that ends in 2063. And I guess the question for this continent is what happens in 33 years' time? What do we do? 23 years' time. What do we do? Is it 30? Yeah, 63, 30 years. What do we then do? And what actions support us? And you raised the question of harmony. And I really like those pillars of harmony that you spoke about. You also spoke about the different case studies and this question and this idea of healing, because I think that is a really important and pertinent question and subject matter that we actually need to think about. What does it mean, though, to heal? And what do we do to support that? I'll pause my reflections there, because then I can waffle on that aspect. Maybe I will try to summarize what I'm asking, and then we'll move on to the questions from our audience. To say that I think generally, I started off with social impact. Everybody wants the same things. We all want to feel the same thing, healing. And I think, though, the clash is different paradigms and ways of thinking about how we get there. So the conflict is mainly based on a values-based system and not necessarily on the outcome. And maybe that is what has impeded. I mean, the Millennium Development Goals ended 2015. They were set in the year 2000. Then 15 years after, we've got this agenda. And maybe 2030 will create a 2045 agenda. But how we get there seems to be a conflict values-wise. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, thanks for your detailed reflections, and thanks for summarizing your reflections in the form of this query. Let me share with an example that basically, when we look at pain, so pain by definition always indicates that something is not in place. When the body has a tumor, there may be some pain. When I put my finger in fire, there is pain. So pain indicates that there needs to be action for change. That's why we go to the doctor. That's why we kind of, move when we are sitting and it's painful. That's why we reflexively take our finger out when, the fire hurts us. So pain is a mechanism which indicates that there needs to be change. And the kind of global pain all of us are experiencing at all levels has to be approached with systems thinking. And therefore, all our traditional wisdom, whether it is from the Vedic literatures or from the various indigenous communities, somehow all of them had naturally, without doing a PhD in systems thinking, their approach towards life had that systems thinking idea. And therefore, I think what's extremely important is, as communities, we need to come together and we need to have dialogue, because ultimately we are all sitting on limited resources, limited time, and there is very limited opportunity. And but there is unlimited ways in which things can mess up. And therefore, all of us at our community level need to be engaged. And that is the most important thing, because three things are important. First is inspiration. There should be an inspiration and impetus to change, for self transformation and for social transformation, both. Only when there is inspiration, then when you commit to that inspiration and act as per your inspiration, and say that, yes, I want to discipline myself. I want to discipline my interaction with Mother Nature. So I can say I have now developed integrity. When there is inspiration and integrity, then we can use the third eye, which is intelligence, on how to do it. Because unless we realize I need to do it and I am very purposeful about it, and unless I have a deep inspiration to do it and I'm committed to do it, the intelligence by itself will not help. And that's why the topic of today's Bhaktivedanta Swami lecture is extremely important, because if sustainability and sharing data and detailed graphs and the projections on how the planet is burning would suffice to create transformation in people's habits, the United Nations would not have reached out to faith-based organizations to help. When the fire brigade itself is unable to put out the fire, they call upon all the citizens to come with their buckets of water and throw it on the fire. And I think today we are experiencing that scenario where we should not be thinking that, oh, someone's house is burning. No, the fire from that house is going to come and burn my house very soon. And therefore, if you look at it from a systems thinking approach, the whole planet is in trouble. And the way to begin is not from the planet, but from the self. So self-control, self-transformation, then social transformation, then there will be a global transformation.
Thank you. Thank you. I like that systemic integration that you've spoken to. And yeah, I think it requires us to sit and ponder in terms of what is the action that I can make to support the whole that I'm actually a part of. Thank you for those thoughts. You were mentioning in your response around the finiteness of the resources that we have. And that question relates to one of the questions we have here from our audience member, Maria. And Maria asks that with particular reference to SDG goals 1 and 2, namely poverty alleviation and zero hunger, realistically speaking, will this be possible with the rapid rise of the population on the planet?
I already, shared one statistics in my talk, that 2.5 billion tons of food is being wasted. Now, this may appear to be just a statistics, but if you look at someone who's deprived of food, if each and every person becomes conscious about how much food he needs and how much food he's wasting, just by the human society giving more attention to the food waste itself, there will be a significant transformation as far as hunger index is concerned. So therefore, I strongly believe that yes, across the world, there is disparity in the distribution of how food is being grown. But again, if to keep the prices high, if food is grown and then thrown, that also is not solving the problem. So therefore, as far as food production is concerned, I don't feel that there is any shortage of food production or there is inability to produce the food. But the human society together needs to come and have a dialogue, a more transparent heart-to-heart dialogue on how do we plan to distribute that food in a way that it goes to the last mile and feeds the person who needs it the most. And therefore, as I quote Gandhiji, who says that the world has enough for everyone's need, but not for everyone's greed. Thank you.
Got you. Thank you. We have a question from Facebook which asks, could you speak about the importance of a more than just ecologically based ethic towards a spiritual or theological based ethic? And the same person has continued, to what degree is such a basis the necessary condition for a truly sustainable livelihood on Earth? Did you catch that question?
Yeah.
Okay.
So basically, our eco village is based on three principles: spirituality, sustainability, and social impact. So, you know, when we interact with different eco villages, like we are twinned. There is a concept called twinning of eco villages. So we have a twinning partner of a eco village through the global eco village network, which is in Israel called kibbutz. And so when we are twinning with them, they are from Jewish tradition, they have some other cultural values and norms and this and that. But when you look at values, when you look at COVID across the whole world was impacting people. The symptoms of the disease was common irrespective of whether someone was monotheistic or polytheistic. you know People were dying. It was a very, very difficult condition, and the medicines were working for many people across the whole world. So when you're looking at common issues which the world is facing, I think we have to approach it from a holistic perspective, and I'm very, very confident that people across the whole world, irrespective of whatever spiritual tradition they may be following and whatever may be the details of their philosophy, they all share common values: love, respect, gratitude, equality, cooperation, collaboration. These are the values which practically all the traditions are speaking about. If the whole world is, can be united through, Apple, smartphone, or a Samsung smartphone, or any of these gadgets. Why? Because they are actually fulfilling a certain need. So therefore, irrespective of whatever may be our background, we may resort to different kinds of spiritual practices to uncover and discover and drill out these values of humility, of gratitude, of love, of compassion, which is very much the quality of the soul. So, therefore, when we refer to spiritual practices and spirituality, we are referring to a process which helps you discover your true nature within as a soul. And therefore, I would say that when that is uncovered, then you feel compassion for other beings, you feel compassion for Mother Earth, you feel compassion for suffering humanity. And therefore, spirituality, sustainability, and social impact has been our three pronged approach in our Eco Village. And I'm very confident, and I can already see many communities which are thriving abundantly and impacting their communities and the neighboring communities by following such lifestyle, not only in Africa, but also in South America, also in Mexico, also in Israel and Europe. So, if you go into the global Eco Village network, you will be connected to a wide range of eco villages across the whole world who may have different flavors of approaches, but ultimately they are looking at some of these values to be ultimately uncovered.
Thank you, Gauranga Das, for that answer. And it relates, or in my mind, it related to that whole systemic aspect you brought up, as well as the dialogue and the collaboration which is required to advance these. And I liked how you mentioned that although there's diversity, there's also this commonality that we all share, and it's about working on that and letting that guide us and advance us forward. It makes me think, and one could also ask or wonder, I mean, the idea of a global village, that the world is a global village, has been coming for some time now. Why have these conversations, dialogues, not necessarily taken place? One might think, because we're still asking the same questions we asked back when we started asking them.
Well, I think deep within each one of us yearn for a utopian experience, and that utopian experience is available as per different faith traditions, but not here, but in another place. But then the faith traditions also inspire us to lead a life which would be in harmony with whatever final destination is going to be. And therefore, I think it's very important for us to recognize the fact that, uh, when Krishna is in Vrindavan, he points to the trees of Vrindavan and glorifies the trees and says that, Pashyadaitan Mahabhagan Parasaikanta Jivitan Vat Varsha Atapahiman Sahanto Varayantina. That the trees I would consider to be the most successful of all. He says, make your life successful like the trees. So one may wonder, hey, that was never an aspiration for me to be like a tree. So what's attracting Krishna so much? So he says that the value which the tree carries is that parasya aikanta jivitan. They live only for others' benefit. They live a life of selfless sacrifice. They experience pain themselves, take the heat of the sun on them, give shade to others. They experience the hit of the hailstorm, give shelter to others. And so Krishna says, Etavat janma safalyam. This is success from my perspective. So therefore, to lead a life based on selfless service and sacrifice is something which all faith traditions are speaking about. And if we had simply continued our human society's journey along those paradigms, we would not be having this conversation this evening. Okay?
So true. So true. We have a question here from Lucas who asks around, because you're speaking now about we all may approach the divine through different paths. And that commonality which you spoke about, Lucas asks, and let me read, for those who claim to be spiritualists, we show care, love, and compassion to human beings, but fail when it comes to the environment. How can spiritualists also be mindful of the environment?
That's an excellent question. In fact, the whole idea behind the Govardhan Eco Village, as enunciated by our founder Acharya of ISKCON, Srila Prabhupada, Simple Living, High Thinking, and the founder of the Govardhan Eco Village, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj, was to show that spirituality is not just about memorizing a certain manual. The manual which comes along with the product is to be used. The recipe book is not something to be read and memorized. On a fasting day, you see the pictures of all the different, ingredients and different items being cooked, the different photos being placed in the recipe book and feel fulfilled. No, the purpose of the recipe book is to inspire the cook to go inside the kitchen and cook something and remove the hunger. So if people approach spirituality as something to be just memorized or to be shown off or to wear on the sleeves as I'm also spiritual, then it is like a cook who's just carrying a bag full of recipe books, and then you feel hungry and tell him, can I eat something? Can you make something? Just a little bit of rice. He says, well, I don't even know how to switch on a stove, but I've memorized all the recipes. So therefore, it doesn't work. So therefore, when we had this concept of the Eco Village, we were focused that let us try to also live a life and showcase a lifestyle which people can see is possible with respect to implementing whatever they have studied in the scriptures in reality. So therefore, I have an interesting story that a group of 15 students came from University of Utah, and it was part of their study abroad program. This was 2019 March. And for the first 4 to 5 days, they had an extensive tour of the eco village, and they saw the various things we are doing, the rainwater harvesting tank. They saw the sewerage system. They saw the soil biotechnology plant. They saw our, plastic recycling unit. They saw our mud blocks. And then, on the sixth day, I saw six or seven of those students who were totally not at all connected to our faith, but they just landed up in the morning prayers at 4:30 in the morning. And I said, hey, what are these guys doing here? Did someone force them to come? And I checked out, and they said, no, we came on our own. I said, why? They said, after being here for 4 or 5 days, when we saw the integration between what you have been professing in your tradition and what you are implementing, and how much care you are taking for Mother Earth, we thought we must know a little bit more about their practices and their philosophy, which drives them to execute such sustainable and earth friendly projects. So this was like a wow, moment for me. That's the kind of implementation which we need in today's time. And therefore, even various churches, and just like in India, we have tied up with Indian Green Building Council. So I am a fellow of the Indian Green Building Council, and I have a collaboration with Indian Green Building Council to make 25 temples of ISKCON green temples over the next couple of years. So that when people come to those temples, they see the environmental friendly practices, and they try to imbibe not just the lessons which they hear from the sermons, but they also try to imbibe this lifestyle in their own practice. So therefore,
Right.
faith traditions have a great responsibility, and that can be shared through one's practice and one's behavior.
Yes, how self-transformation drives social impact. Thank you for that. We have a question from Anonymous, and looking at time, we might have one or two more other questions after this one. So the second last question, perhaps, while we may sing the praise of Morocco building the world's largest concentrated solar facility to help achieve the country's goal of 52% renewable energy mix by 2030, the rest of Africa does suffer when it comes to electricity. What smaller, more cost-effective initiatives championed by ingenious systems could be adopted and benefit communities? Do you have any thoughts on this?
Yeah, actually, alternative energy is a major challenge as far as the world is concerned. Uh, but I think, as far as alternative energy is concerned, amongst wind and other kinds of alternative energies, solar is one of the best, especially in countries which have a very high exposure of sunshine all through the year. When you have to depend on battery backup, then it is not so sustainable. But if you have countries and governments which are willing to buy back solar power which is generated, and there is net metering facility allowed and available, then it is a great way where the entire community is generating electricity and sharing that electricity. And that is something which can be of great benefit. So, one specific response for smaller and most cost effective initiatives is standalone solar lamps, standalone solar fans, standalone various household gadgets which are run on solar. And that is something which we have tried. In fact, I'm in the process of researching and implementing a very interesting technology for waste management, which is specifically using the design of a cow's stomach and seeing how a cow digests food and using biomimicry, then this team has actually created a design which actually creates fish for water, and that is something which we plan to implement at a micro level with a small unit which we are creating at the Eco Village. So I'm sure that many such technologies are available, but of course the best of all cost effective initiative is control the usage. And I would suggest human beings have been designed to sleep at night, so let's become inactive at night more than become more active at night. So currently the big problem the world is facing is global population is becoming more and more hyperactive as the night progresses. And therefore, if together as society we decide on early to bed and early to rise makes a person healthy, wealthy, and wise, or whatever, then I think we would be implementing one of the most cost-effective initiative in terms of saving power.
Got that. Thank you. For our final question, and I think it relates to what you mentioned now, aligning with nature and the natural rhythms of nature. But what about those who live in urban environments? And the question says urbanization rates are steadily increasing. Since 2008, more than 50% of the human population lives in cities. Are there practical means to minimize the impact we have as individuals living in urban environments?
Definitely. You know, if you look at all aspects of your life, like for example, I'll share with you statistics from Delhi that in a city like Delhi, 2 3 years ago, almost 2 billion liters of petroleum was used in all the vehicles put together. Well, you need 12 times, 1 billion liters. So to burn that, you need at least 12 times the oxygen. So you need 12 billion liters of oxygen. To generate 12 billion liters of oxygen, you would need a forest, of almost 60,000 trees. And this forest, it would have to be over almost 2,700 square kilometers, whereas Delhi is hardly a few hundred square kilometers. So just imagine that in cities, if the paradigm of success is that each member should have an extra vehicle, and then we should have this, and we should have that, and we should. So the first element in reducing impact in urban spaces is, let us do a careful audit on how much we actually need, right? Second is in terms of choices for what we use in our lifestyle. If you just take a simple example of water, the soap being generated, the wastewater which comes out of soap, toothpaste, bathing, all of this put together, it can create a humongous amount of saving if we put attention to that. And lifestyle choices like the kind of cutlery we use, if we continue to use styrofoam, use and throw, that's not going to help. Because I tell a story that a German traveler came to India many years ago in the 50s and 60s, and in hotels they used to give food on banana leaves. Banana leaf is like natural. So it was the first time he was experiencing food on banana leaf. He ate the food, and then after eating the food, he looked at the banana leaf. He didn't know what to do. He started eating that also. So then on the way out, he asked he was paying his bill to the manager. And so the manager asked, "Sir, how was the food?" And the traveler said, "The food was great, but the salad was very stiff." So, he just had never seen a paradigm like that. Whereas our traditional life was also sustainable. So therefore, I'm happy to share that nowadays lots of innovators who are cause driven are coming up with companies creating products which actually are very sustainable. In fact, there is a company in Bangalore which is producing plates which can be eaten. That means the whole plate is made out of edible material, and they have a formula which is patented. And then you put your food on it, you eat the food, and then the plate also is coming in different flavors, and you can eat that also. So, a lot of innovative things people are doing to help our urban impact on environment decrease. So, anyway, thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. Thanks to Jayadvaita Swami Maharaj and Govardhan Prabhu for allowing me to share some of my thoughts. And I hope all of your wonderful work continues every year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And at this stage, if we had our live audience members in person, that'd be a roaring applause, I'm sure. Thank you so much, Gauranga Dasa. I have, and I'm sure the audience has really appreciated your thoughtful and heart-provoking comments on today's topic. And it was not just theory-based. I liked how you gave practical examples. You gave practical insight in terms of how we can really advance these goals that we have given, and how we can use the insightful tools of spiritual knowledge as well as ancient traditions. Thank you, Gauranga Dasa.
Thank you.
I'd also like to thank you all as well in the audience for sharing your thoughts and your voices to this critical conversation. It is noteworthy to consider how the sustainability and the healing of our planet will not only be advanced by external means, but that it also requires the transformation of our own hearts and consciousness, self-transformation into social impacts, as we heard in today's program. We hope that this conversation does not only live on the internet archives, but that it actually roots and plays out in our personal lives, as we've been encouraged to do so today. Thank you all for your participation. How time flies, we have now reached the end of our program. I would like to invite Mfundo Ngosi back to share the vote of thanks. I think you're muted, Mfundo.
Thank you. Thank you to Gauranga Dasa for an exceptional lecture. Not only was it insightful, I think it was the beginning of a conversation that we need to continue to have within faith-based organizations in relation to the actual impact we can have on our communities. So thank you for getting the ball rolling with regards to that conversation, Gauranga Dasa. Thank you to the audience that attended and everyone that posted a comment and a question. Each one of you have actually lent so much value to this discussion that we have had today. And I'd also like to extend my sincere gratitude to our head of events at the Bhaktivedanta Book Trust, along with her exceptional team, Sureka Singh. Thank you for putting together this professional event and broadcasting to a global audience. It was pertinent and so well put together. Thank you, Sureka. I'd like to thank you, Buntle, our guest master of ceremonies, for taking us through this conversation with your wonderful smile and insight. I'd like to thank Mathura Mandala, part of our events team. I'd like to thank Krishna Gyan, who's working in the background as our technical advisor. Thank you to Divyangana Devirasi for marketing alongside her team. And my gratitude is also extended to each and every single member of our BBT Africa team and family working here in South Africa and from all across the continent. And finally, I'd just like to obviously extend my thank you to our senior trustee again, Govardhan Prabhu, and our trustee emeritus, His Holiness Jayadvaita Swami, for again providing us with the impetus, the blessings, and the insight to be able to deliver such insightful, Vedic-based topics for our communities. And with that, Buntle, I hand back to you for our closing.
Thank you, Mfundo. In the spirit of appreciation and gratitude, as we've also heard, drive sustainability on this planet. Thank you, Mfundo, for those comments. And thank you, everyone, as well as mentioned, for your time, your input, and the insights that you've shared to this 8th Bhaktivedanta Swami lecture. As you would have seen, there was a ticker running with how you can continue to stay in touch with BBT Africa. As you are joining actually on the channels, the social media channels, please keep in touch through those as well. And for more information on BBT Africa, please visit the website on www.bbtafrica.co.za. I thank you all for your time. Let us continue the conversation, not in word, but also in deed. Do stay in touch, keep well and safe, and a blessed afternoon to you all further. Thank you.